What if everything you know is wrong?
Let's talk about social media. It's one of the biggest paradoxes of our time, right? It promises to bring the entire world to our fingertips, but so often it can leave us feeling more alone than ever before. So how does that work? How can something designed for connection also create so much isolation? Well, in this explainer, we're going to try and unravel that exact question. I mean, think about it. On one side, you've got this incredible promise of a global village, right? A place where you can make friends and share ideas with people thousands of miles away. But then, on the other side, there's this growing mountain of evidence that says the more time we spend on these platforms, the more disconnected we can feel. So how can our best tool for connection also be our biggest hurdle? That's what we're going to dig into today. Okay, here's how we're going to break it all down. First up, we'll look at that amazing promise of connection that social media was built on. Then, we're going to peek behind the curtain and get into the psychology that keeps us all scrolling for hours. After that, we'll face the real costs of our digital lives. And finally, and this is the important part, we'll talk about how you can take back control. Sound good? Let's dive in. So let's start with the good stuff, the original vision. Because you got to remember, social media wasn't invented to be this big, bad thing. It was actually designed with this really powerful, almost utopian idea of bringing every single one of us closer together. And you know what? In so many ways, it delivered on that promise. Just think about it. When a crisis hits, social media becomes an instant lifeline, a real-time communication tool. It's also like having the world's biggest library in your pocket, giving you access to experts you'd never get to meet. It's our modern photo album, and it's a seriously powerful tool for activism, for bringing people together over a shared cause. It's incredible. Yeah, this quote from 16 Personalities really nails it. The sheer scale of this collaborative power is it's unlike anything we've ever seen in human history. It really is a force for good. But, and it's a big but, to really get the full picture, we have to look at the machinery that's working in the background, the stuff designed to grab our attention and never let it go. So it's time to pop the hood and see what makes this engine run. And spoiler alert, it isn't magic. It's actually a pretty fascinating mix of our own brain chemistry and some seriously clever intentional design. So at the very heart of this engine is this powerful little chemical called dopamine. The easiest way to think about it is like your brain's own personal good job signal. It's that little kick of satisfaction you get when you accomplish something, and it's what makes you want to do it again. And well, social media platforms have become absolute masters at tapping right into that system. Now, here's what's so wild about this whole process. You post something and then you wait. That reward, a like, a comment, whatever, it's totally unpredictable. You don't know when it's coming, and that unpredictability, which scientists call a variable ratio reinforcement schedule, that's the secret sauce. It's literally the exact same principle that makes a slot machine so addictive. It's the maybe that keeps our brains hooked, making us check our phones again and again and again. But hold on, because it's not just about what's going on inside our heads. There's another huge force at play here. It's the invisible system that carefully curates what you see on your feed, and maybe more importantly, what you don't see. This is what a lot of researchers call the triple filter bubble. And it works like this. First, it starts with you. We are all naturally wired to prefer information that confirms what we already believe. Second, it's your friends. Your social circles reinforce those beliefs and give you a sense of belonging. And third, the final layer is the algorithm. It's watching everything you do and constantly feeding you more of what it thinks you'll like, creating this super powerful feedback loop. So what's the jet fuel that powers this entire system? It's not logic, it's not facts, it's raw, powerful emotion. Think about it. Anger, fear, joy, that feeling of belonging. These are the things that drive us to click and share. Emotion is basically the superglue holding that whole filter bubble together. Okay, so now that we know how the mechanics work, let's talk about the consequences. What happens when this incredibly powerful engine of engagement is running nonstop, 24/7? What's the real price of the scroll? So seriously, what is the real-world cost of this whole system? If you've ever spent an hour scrolling through a feed and then just felt kind of blah afterward, well, you are definitely not alone. The data is starting to show some really troubling links to our mental health. Yeah, the research here is becoming pretty hard to ignore. We're seeing strong connections between heavy social media use and things like increased anxiety and depression. And there's that weird paradox of feeling lonely even when you have hundreds of friends. And of course, there's FOMO, that constant fear of missing out. And maybe the biggest one is the hit our self-esteem takes from constantly comparing our own messy, real lives to everyone else's perfectly curated highlight reel. And check this out, because this chart really drives the point home. One study looked at how many different platforms people use, and the results? They were pretty shocking. You can see here that people who were on a whole bunch of platforms, like 7 or more, had a way higher risk for anxiety and depression. So it's not just about the time you spend, it's also about how thinly you spread your attention. And beyond all the internal struggles, there's the very real external harm. Just look at this number. A staggering 59% of teenagers in the US say they've been bullied or harassed online. So the very same platforms that are meant for connection can become places of intense cruelty, and that leaves real, lasting scars. Okay, I know that was all pretty heavy, but here's the good news, the really good news. The story does not have to end there. This last section is all about empowerment. It's about how we can take back control and build a much healthier relationship with these tools. And this is the single most important thing to remember. You are in the driver's seat. This isn't about some all-or-nothing approach like you have to delete all your apps and go live in a cave. Not at all. It's simply about shifting from being a passive scroller to being an active, intentional user. So here are 4 super simple, totally doable things you can try. First, just track your usage for a bit, then set some limits. Knowledge is power. Second, turn off those non-essential notifications. Take back your focus. Third, and this one is huge, leave your phone out of the bedroom. Protect your sleep. And finally, make a real effort to schedule face-to-face time with friends. Nothing beats it. And if you're sitting there thinking, yeah, right, like these little changes will actually do anything, well, the science says they absolutely will. Check this out. A major study found that cutting social media use down to just 30 minutes a day led to a significant drop in anxiety, depression, and loneliness. Just think about that. It's proof that even small steps in the right direction can have a massive impact. Which kind of brings us to our big final question. We've talked a lot about what we can do as users, but what about the companies that make these apps? So who's ultimately responsible for our digital well-being? Is it the person doing the scrolling, or is it the person who designed the scroll to be so addictive in the first place? It's a tough question, and honestly, it's one we're all going to be wrestling with for a long time to come.
Understanding begins with why.